This is the K&N Series 50 NextGen cold air intake with the high flow oiled filter, and it is available for all 2019 and newer 5.3 liter powered Silverados. Now the K&N should appeal to Silverado owners out there that essentially want the best of both worlds out of their aftermarket intake system. The increased sound of an open element design, but with the partially sealed airbox to help prevent excess heat soak. Now the K&N will include the rotomolded plastic intake tube here, unique molded airbox design, and of course your reusable high flow oiled filter, all for right around that high $400 price point. Now moving into features, and the biggest I would say here is the fact that the NextGen is one of the newer systems from the legendary brand K&N, with the main feature of delivering what they're calling their hybrid airbox design. Now traditionally you either have a fully sealed airbox or a design that is pretty open, and both have their pros and their cons. But in this case, K&N has come up with their NextGen system that blends the two styles together, so owners can enjoy pros of each, right? A little bit more sound under hard acceleration while still maintaining lower intake air temperatures and keeping power numbers up in those warmer climates. Now that hybrid airbox design, along with other components, leads to a nearly 40% increase in airflow over your factory airbox and some pretty hefty advertised gains without the use of any custom or can tuning, which is important to point out. As always guys, you do not need to run a tune in order to install the K&N, so you can install this thing right out of the box and enjoy all of the benefits with nothing else needed. Now moving into construction, and let's start off with that legendary K&N filter here. This is a washable and reusable high flow oiled filter featuring the cotton media that K&N has used for years, and because it just flat out works, especially with that oiled design. Now this filter with proper maintenance will essentially last you the life of your Silverado at home. Now the filter will reside in that molded hybrid airbox, which we've pretty much covered at length by now, but that airbox does feature a molded plastic design, just like your molded intake tube here, which by the way, the tube itself has been CAD designed to maximize flow while still fitting in the factory location. Speaking of which, the intake will mount in the stock location using the included clamps and hardware, and is backed by K&N's signature million-mile warranty. Price point for the K&N Series 50 NextGen system will land in that high $400 ballpark, which does put this in line with other more premium options here on the site from companies like AFE, Corsa, or Air Raid, just to name a few. Last but not least, let's get into the installation, and because this is a simple bolt-on job, the site's gonna call it a solid 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, taking you about an hour to get in place from start to finish. But now to give you a better idea of how this one might go down in the garage or driveway at home, let's throw it out to the shop for our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
Tools required for this install include a ratchet, clip remover tool, flathead screwdriver, 13/16 wrench, 3 and 4 millimeter Allen wrenches, an extension, 8 and 10 millimeter sockets, and T15 and T20 torque sockets. Today we're installing an intake on our Silverado. First we're going to watch a quick uninstall video showing you how to remove your factory intake, and I'll meet you back here for the install.
Getting started, we need to obviously pop our hood here on our Silverado, and then first step is to unplug your mass airflow sensor. You're going to want to pull back on this red clip and then release the plug. So again, slide the red portion back. At that point you can release the clip. Next up, we're going to work on removing the intake tube portion of the factory intake. Getting started, we can loosen up our clamp here at the airbox connection. Either use a flathead screwdriver for this or an 8 millimeter socket. Next up, we're going to loosen up the clamp here at the throttle body connection, again using a flathead screwdriver or an 8 millimeter socket. With our two clamps loosened up, we're about ready to pull out the intake tube portion, but before we do, we have to go ahead and remove our PCV hose on the back here, push in on the gray clip, and pull back. At this point now, we can go ahead and remove our intake tube from the engine bay, releasing it from the throttle body, and then from the airbox. Next up, we need to remove the upper radiator valance here. There are 10 plastic clips holding this in place. So grab a trim removal tool, flathead screwdriver, whatever you have laying around. You're gonna wanna pop the top off this clip and then remove the clip itself. Now before we go ahead and remove our upper radiator valance, we do need to remove the hood latch release. To do so, you need a T15 Torx tool. With that removed, you can slide it off. With the latch out of the way, now you can remove your valance. The reason you removed your upper radiator valance is to gain access to this clip right here. Basically, you need to pop this guy out. With that clip removed, that'll allow you to pull back the snorkel just enough to get out of that stock gearbox. Now we can go ahead and remove this 10mm nut down here, and that will be our first step in removing our stock gearbox. Next up, we need to remove this wiring harness and clip from the airbox itself. It's actually attached to a bracket there. To do so, you could either use a small pick tool, flathead screwdriver to release the clip back here and then pull up. At this point, our stock airbox is ready to come out. Couple little tips here. You're gonna wanna push this out of the way, just to kind of secure it underneath one of your hoses. And then also, there are 2 rubber grommets on the back side of the airbox. You don't wanna lose those.
So now with our stock intake removed, we're gonna transfer over our mass airflow sensor to our new intake tube. We've got a bracket that we need to install onto the opening here that we can mount our MAF sensor to. So I'm gonna start off by taking a T20 Torx socket to remove the 2 screws on our MAF sensor. And then I've got my little gasket and the mounting plate for the MAF sensor. We're gonna line this up so that these 2 cutouts line up with the 2 holes. And then we're just gonna peel off the backing and stick that down. And then we can take that and mount that to our new intake tube using the bolts with flat washers that are included in the kit. Take a 4mm Allen wrench or socket, thread in your bolts. And I'm gonna grab my MAF sensor and we're gonna put it facing the same direction here. So in our factory intake, this is where our air filter is. And then on our aftermarket one, this bigger hole side is gonna be for the air filter. So the connector is pointed towards the throttle body on this one. So we're doing the same over here. If your holes don't line up, then you're gonna have to pull off this adapter and flip it around 180 degrees, and that'll make your bolt holes line up. So now take the 2 new screws for the MAF sensor, drop those in, and take a 3mm Allen wrench to tighten those down. Next, I'm going to install the 90-degree fitting for the PCV line. So we've got threads, we're just gonna thread it right into the side of our intake. And then once it's in there snug by hand, take a 13/16 wrench, and I'm gonna be pointing this up just to make it a little bit easier for our connector. And then we can start assembling our new PCV line. So we're gonna have to put our fittings into each end. We'll slide our worm clamp on there first, and then tighten that down with a flathead screwdriver. Do the same thing on this side. Now we need to take one of the rubber grommets from our factory airbox and transfer it over to our new one. So just kind of wiggle it off. And then we're just gonna slide that onto our new airbox. So now before we get our airbox in here, we're gonna install this relocation bracket for our big connector. So this hooked side, we're gonna slide into the connector where we slid it off of our factory airbox. And then we've got a hole on the other side that's going down on the stud that we removed that nut from for the airbox. Slide that in until it clicks like that. Lay it down on that stud and just kind of rotate it out of the way. We'll get it into its final spot once we get the airbox in here and move it over. So now we're gonna get our intake box into place. We need to get this grommet into that bracket, and then we'll line up this intake duct with the front here. And then I want to line up the hole in the airbox over here with that stud. So now inside the airbox, we have that stud that we slipped the hole over. We're going to be reusing our factory nut that we removed from that same stud for our factory airbox. Now it's kind of tucked up in there. It's going to be really hard to get a camera angle on, but it's kind of right under the N on the K&N logo here. So just reach in and thread that on, and then grab a shallow 10mm socket, tighten it down. Now I'm going to fully remove this PCV line. Now just like on this top one, we're going to push in on that gray tab and then just pull up. And then with that removed, I'm going to get our new PCV line and push that on. And then we'll just let that hang out over here while we get our filter and intake tube installed. Next, I'm going to take my intake filter and we're just going to push this into place. Just get it lined up and push it in all the way around. So now we've got two different size couplers included in our kit, depending on the size of your throttle body. So if we put this on, we can see that that's super loose. So we're gonna put this one on that fits it a lot better. So I'm gonna grab my clamp. I'm gonna have this screw facing up and on this side of the throttle body, so we don't have this to worry about. Slide that over, slide the coupler around the throttle body. I'm gonna get the clamp for my intake tube on the opposite side of that coupler. Same thing, screw facing up on this side. And then we can grab our intake tube and get that in here. So now I'm gonna take my clamp and put that onto my filter. I'm gonna take my intake tube with the extension harness for the mass airflow sensor. So plug that in, push down that gray locking tab. And I'm gonna take the connector from my mass airflow sensor and push that out of the way for now. And then I'll maneuver in my intake tube. Try to work it into that coupler. And now I'm going to take that mass airflow sensor connector, plug it in, and press down on the red locking tab. Connect my PCV line. And now I just need to get all my clamps into place and tighten them down. So get that right up on the edge of that coupler. Make sure that it's on the coupler all the way around and not off of it at the bottom. And then take an 8mm socket to tighten down your clamp. Next, we're gonna line up our intake duct. So you can kind of reach your hand behind the headlight to grab the other side and maneuver that into place. And then we'll reinstall our push clip through the hole and into the body. So now we can just reinstall our radiator cover. So line up your intake duct side first, and then drop that down into place, and we'll reinstall all of our push clips. Now we can slide the handle for the hood latch back on and reinstall our 2 screws. Then take your T15 torque socket and tighten those down. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the K&N Series 50 NextGen cold air intake with high flow oiled air filter for your 2019 and newer 5.3 liter Silverado and Sierra 1500. Thank you for watching, and for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.